This is the Sleep Historian. Each night we explore the echoes of the past, stories told slowly to calm the mind and ease you towards sleep. If you enjoy these quiet journeys through time, please like and subscribe, and let the next story begin. Before Rome began to crumble, it was still a world of stone, order, and familiar rhythm. You stand near the Tiber River in the late 4th century CE, where the water drifts slowly beneath weathered bridges. Market stalls open to the morning light as merchants arrange baskets of figs and worn bronze scales. Columns rise from older forums, their carvings softened by centuries of wind. Rome no longer shines with its early brilliance, yet the city carries a deep, calm dignity. Beneath its quiet surface, however, pressures gather, subtle shifts that will soon reshape the ancient world. Walk through the forum as sunlight touches cracked marble floors. Vendors sweep dust from thresholds. Senators in heavy cloaks speak softly about tax shortages, border tensions, and uncertain loyalties. Statues of long-dead emperors watch from pedestals, their faces worn smooth by time. Rome is still the heart of an empire stretching from Britain to the deserts of Egypt, but its pulse feels faint. Armies along distant frontiers request reinforcements. Provincial officials send reports of unrest. And amidst these concerns, ordinary life continues. Children playing near fountains, scribes sharpening reed pens, unaware of the slow turns ahead. The roots of Rome's decline stretch back centuries. You stand near a military outpost along the Rhine frontier in the 3rd century CE, where soldiers adjust worn helmets and check javelins for cracks. The river glitters beneath gray clouds. Beyond it lie tribes whose alliances shift like weather. Repeated conflicts strain the empire's resources. Armies fight far from home, defending vast boundaries. Recruitment grows difficult. Pay is often delayed. These pressures weaken stability, though few foresee lasting consequences. To the soldiers, each campaign feels ordinary. Another season, another threat, another year of duty along the cold frontier. Economic troubles deepen. You walk through a provincial market where coinage feels lighter in your hand, the silver content reduced through years of debasement. Merchants examine each coin carefully, uncertain of its worth. Prices rise, sometimes changing weekly. Farmers struggle with taxes that demand harvests they cannot always produce. Warehouses store grain from Egypt and North Africa, yet shortages appear unpredictably. These small frustrations ripple through daily life, eroding trust in imperial administration. Though the empire still spans continents, its financial foundation begins to crack quietly, like fissures beneath the surface of an aging road. Political stability falters. You stand inside a dim audience hall, where a newly proclaimed emperor addresses soldiers, his voice calm but urgent. In this era, emperors rise and fall with unsettling speed, many elevated by military support, others removed by the same hands. The imperial court shifts from city to city, seeking loyalty and security. Advisors whisper about plots. Generals measure opportunities. A sense of uncertainty hovers in the room, noticeable even in the soft rustle of cloaks or the distant sound of guards changing shifts. Leadership, once Rome's anchor, grows unpredictable and fragile. Amid instability, the empire divides administratively. You stand at a marble map table in a provincial headquarters where officials trace boundaries of the Eastern and Western empires. The idea is practical. Two rulers can manage vast territories more effectively than one. Messengers deliver reports from distant regions, grain shipments from Alexandria, troop movements in Gaul, tax disputes in Spain. While the eastern half thrives with stronger trade routes and fortified cities, the western half struggles with dwindling resources. The division brings clarity, yet it also reveals growing imbalance. Rome's unity, once its strength, begins to weaken. External pressures intensify. Beyond the Danube, migrating groups move steadily toward Roman lands, driven by conflict, climate shifts, or the search for safety. You stand at a fortified crossing where Roman soldiers watch a distant line of wagons approaching. Families, not warriors. Their presence reflects wider upheaval across Eurasia. Some seek refuge within Rome's borders. Others resist Roman authority. Diplomacy becomes essential. Treaties allow settlement in exchange for military service. But these agreements strain local communities, creating tensions that require careful negotiation. The empire adapts, but each adaptation reveals vulnerabilities previously unseen. Cultural transformation accelerates. Christianity spreads rapidly, reshaping long-held traditions. You stand inside a basilica lit by candles, listening to hymns rising softly through the hall. Marble columns cast long shadows across the floor. Nearby, old temples remain open but sparsely attended. The shift is gentle yet profound, influencing law, architecture, and social life. Bishops gain authority, guiding communities through charitable networks. The empire becomes increasingly defined by this new faith, which offers unity, but also sparks debates over doctrine and identity. Rome, once anchored in many gods, now follows a different spiritual path. Meanwhile, cities of the western provinces decline. You walk through a once bustling town in Gaul, where abandoned workshops sit behind sagging wooden doors. Unrepaired walls show cracks from past raids. Public baths close as funds for maintenance disappear. Yet life persists. Farmers gather in small markets. Children run through quiet courtyards, and priests tend simple altars. The world is not collapsing, but shrinking. Civic pride wanes as local elites migrate or lose wealth. Gradually, the grand urban landscape of the earlier empire softens into humbler forms, reflecting changing priorities and limited resources. Amid these shifts, Rome itself remains symbolic, though its practical influence fades. You stand before the Senate House, where only a handful of senators gather, their debates reduced in scope. Imperial power resides elsewhere, in Milan, then Ravenna, safer cities closer to frontier armies. Rome becomes a spiritual center rather than a political one, admired for its history but no longer central to administration. Yet pilgrims, traders, and scholars continue arriving, drawn by ancient monuments and sacred sites. The city still carries weight, even as the empire around it transforms in quiet, irreversible ways. By the late 4th century, new waves of migration reached the empire's borders. The Goths, pushed westward by pressure from the Huns, seek refuge. You stand near the Danube as Roman officials negotiate terms of entry. Families wait by the river with bundles of clothing, simple carts, and tired animals. Their faces show relief and uncertainty. Rome agrees to provide land and protection in exchange for loyalty. But mismanagement leads to shortages, abuses, and growing anger among the Gothic refugees. Tension builds like a slow, tightening thread, unnoticed by many until it pulls taut. The breaking point arrives at Adrianople. You stand on a distant hill as dust clouds rise from the valley, where Roman forces engage the Goths. The sound is muted. Distant shouts, the clash of metal, the thud of hooves. The battle ends disastrously for Rome. Emperor Valens falls. Units scatter. Survivors speak in quiet, shaken voices. This loss marks a turning point. The empire realizes its limits. No longer can Rome assume victory through tradition alone. Frontiers must be renegotiated, alliances rebuilt. Adrianople becomes a lesson inscribed not in triumph, but in sobering clarity. After Adrianople, diplomacy becomes essential. You stand in a candlelit chamber where Roman envoys meet Gothic leaders. Voices stay low, calm, deliberate. Agreements grant the Goths autonomy within imperial borders, making them foederati, allies governed by their own chiefs, but pledged to Rome. This compromise maintains peace, but it also sets a new precedent. The empire increasingly depends on negotiated relationships with powerful groups it cannot fully control. Rome adapts with reason and practicality, yet each adjustment shifts the balance of authority within its borders. Meanwhile, the western provinces struggle economically. You walk across farmlands in North Africa, where estates once thrived. Some fields lie fallow due to disrupted trade. Warehouses along the coast stand partly empty. Grain shipments to Italy become inconsistent. In the countryside, small farmers face rising taxes, despite declining yields. Local officials travel dusty roads, collecting dues, their faces tired from long journeys. The economy holds together, but only just. A fragile network vulnerable to storms, raids, or administrative missteps. Rome's wealth no longer feels limitless. It feels stretched thin across a vast map. The army changes shape. With fewer Roman recruits, generals rely increasingly on Germanic soldiers, who serve with loyalty but maintain their own cultural identities. You stand near a training ground where recruits practice under fading sunlight. Their shields bear mixed symbols: Roman eagles, Gothic patterns, stylized animals. Officers instruct in Latin, but conversations among soldiers weave many languages together. The army is still disciplined, still capable, but less Roman in composition. This diversity brings strength and tension, shaping a force both familiar and foreign at the same time. Corruption grows quietly. You observe a provincial governor reviewing petitions in a crowded hall. Some requests receive swift attention. Others are delayed unless incentives appear. Local elites leverage connections for advantage. Ordinary citizens wait patiently, aware of the system's inefficiencies, but unsure how to challenge them. None of this feels dramatic, just slow erosion. Decisions take longer. Offices change hands frequently. Public works go unfinished. With each year, administrative confidence weakens. The empire still functions, but its machinery grinds with increasing friction, noticeable even in the hushed shuffle of people across tiled floors. Religious debates stir new divisions. You stand inside a council chamber where bishops discuss doctrine beneath painted ceilings. Candles flicker, casting soft light on parchment scrolls. Disagreements grow heated, though voices remain measured. Arian and Nicene beliefs compete for imperial favor. Emperors issue edicts attempting unity, but local communities interpret teachings differently. Religion, once a unifying force, becomes a source of contention. Ordinary believers follow these disputes with quiet confusion. Faith is still central, but its role in politics complicates decisions and fractures alliances. By the early 5th century, pressure on the Western Empire intensifies. You walk along the walls of a city in Gaul as scouts report incursions by various tribes. Refugees enter through gates, carrying linens, tools, and wide-eyed children clutching wooden toys. Local soldiers reinforce battlements with timber and stone. Inside the city, bakers reduce bread portions to conserve grain. The atmosphere is tense but orderly. People adapt as they always have, yet the strain feels constant now. Each season brings new uncertainty, marking the slow, quiet unraveling of a once unshakable world. In 410 CE, the unthinkable occurs. You stand on a ridge overlooking Rome as the Visigoth army under Alaric gathers outside the walls. The city's gates, once symbols of invincibility, remain closed against desperate negotiations. Inside, food supplies dwindle. Citizens whisper prayers in darkened houses. When the gates finally open, the Goths enter in tense silence. Fires burn in scattered districts, though many buildings remain untouched. The sack is not total destruction, but its emotional impact is immense. Rome, eternal, revered, seemingly untouchable, has been breached. A quiet realization settles across the world. The empire has changed forever. The sack's aftermath feels heavy but strangely calm. You walk through Rome's streets days later, where debris lies in quiet piles beside toppled statues. Residents search for missing items, moving carefully over broken tiles. Priests perform cleansing rituals at temples, their chants drifting through still air. In the Senate House, surviving members gather to assess the damage, their expressions solemn. News spreads slowly along distant roads, carried by merchants and messengers. Some refuse to believe it. Others see it as a symbol of wider decline. Rome still stands, but the aura of invulnerability that once defined it has faded. Despite the shock, daily life resumes. Artisans return to workshops, repairing shutters and reshaping damaged tools. Bakers reopen ovens, filling alleys with the familiar scent of fresh bread. You sit near a fountain as families gather water in clay jugs, their conversations subdued but steady. Traders from nearby regions arrive with grain and cloth, eager to rebuild trust. The city adapts, as it always has. Yet beneath the surface lies a quiet awareness. Rome's position in the world is shifting. The empire's center of gravity is moving elsewhere, toward stronger, more stable territories, far from the old capital. Power consolidates in Ravenna, protected by marshes and closer to frontier armies. You stand near its palace complex, where imperial officials review reports from Gaul, Spain, and Africa. The halls smell of wax and ink. Walls display mosaics of emperors and saints. Ravenna feels calm, almost insulated from the turbulence elsewhere. Yet this distance from Rome is symbolic. Authority has migrated. The Western Empire now governs from a quieter, more defensible seat. Ravenna provides safety, but also reinforces the sense that the old heart of the empire has weakened, its ceremonial grandeur outpacing its political relevance. Across the provinces, instability deepens. In Britain, Roman garrisons withdraw, leaving towns to manage their own defenses. You stand along a crumbling fortification near Hadrian's Wall, where grass overtakes abandoned watchtowers. Wind whistles through open gateways. Local leaders gather in wooden halls, debating how to protect their communities without imperial support. Trade with the continent diminishes, and roads deteriorate. The Roman world recedes gradually, not through a single event, but through countless unnoticed moments. A shipment delayed, a bridge unrepaired, a patrol that never arrives. Britain drifts into a new, uncertain age. Gaul faces its own pressures. You walk along a riverside town where Roman officials negotiate with Burgundian and Frankish leaders. Their cloaks ripple in the cool breeze as they exchange gifts and promises. These alliances keep peace in the short term, but they also acknowledge shifting power balances. Roman authority persists, but shares space with rising regional rulers. In markets, Latin mingles with Germanic tongues. Cultural blending becomes common, a sign of both adaptation and decline. The region remains vibrant, yet its Roman character thins like aging parchment. Spain, once prosperous, confronts uprisings and competing claims. You observe farmers tending olive groves under a pale sky. Their movements are slow, deliberate, shaped by uncertain harvests and changing taxes. Local elites correspond with Rome, requesting reinforcements that rarely arrive. Suebi and Vandals carve out territories, forming new kingdoms within former Roman borders. Cities maintain fragments of imperial administration, courts, markets, churches, but their connections to the wider empire weaken. Spain becomes a mosaic of influences, still culturally Roman in many ways, yet increasingly independent in practice. North Africa remains Rome's agricultural lifeline, sending grain across the Mediterranean. You stand on a sunlit dock in Carthage, where ships are loaded with sacks of wheat. Workers move with calm efficiency, but tension lies ahead. Rivalries among Roman officials undermine stability, and local groups resent heavy taxation. The Vandals, skilled sailors, gain strength in nearby regions. The empire's reliance on African grain makes the area strategically vital and vulnerable. For now, the harbor bustles with life, but the winds of change blow quietly across the sea, carrying whispers of future upheaval. Religious authority rises as political power wanes. You enter a basilica in Rome, where Bishop Leo delivers a sermon, his voice echoing beneath high arches. Candles flicker, illuminating faces turned upward in hope. As imperial institutions weaken, church leaders offer guidance and continuity. They maintain charitable networks, negotiate with invaders, and preserve learning. You watch monks copying manuscripts in sunlit cloisters, their quills moving steadily across parchment. The church becomes a stabilizing presence, spiritual, administrative, cultural, shaping the identity of communities throughout the crumbling western provinces. Amid shifting power, daily life remains a tapestry of small routines. You walk through a village in northern Italy, where farmers repair fences, draw water from a stone well, and guide oxen through muddy fields. Children chase each other near a crumbling milestone. A traveling merchant arrives with salt, pottery, and distant news. Life feels modest but grounded. Though the empire's grand structures weaken, local communities endure through cooperation and hard work. The fall of Rome is not a sudden collapse for most people. It is a gradual thinning of connections to distant authority. The Vandals cross into North Africa and seize key territories. You stand on a hillside overlooking a Roman estate near Hippo Regius as smoke rises in the distance. Families gather belongings, moving quickly but calmly towards safer towns. Roman officials negotiate, hoping to preserve trade routes, but the Vandals establish control with surprising speed. When Carthage eventually falls, Rome loses its crucial grain supply. Ships leave the harbor less frequently. Bread prices rise across Italy. The loss feels like a quiet exhale, a vital system failing after centuries of reliability, leaving the empire struggling to adapt. Piracy increases across Mediterranean waters. You stand on a rocky coastline as Roman patrol ships prepare to set sail. Their hulls creak under shifting waves. Sailors secure ropes, scanning the horizon. Trade becomes dangerous. Merchants hesitate to risk goods without protection. Once busy harbors experience quieter days. The Mediterranean, once called "our sea" by confident Romans, grows uncertain. The empire's navy, weakened by limited funding, cannot cover vast routes. A sense of vulnerability settles over coastal towns, shaping daily decisions: when to travel, when to wait, and how to adapt to unpredictable waters. In Italy, tensions sharpen. You walk through a council chamber where local leaders discuss dwindling resources. Grain shipments decline. Tax revenues shrink. Armies expect payment that officials struggle to provide. The atmosphere is quiet but anxious. Outside, the streets of Ravenna remain orderly, though soldiers patrol more frequently. Travelers bring news of shifting alliances across Gaul and Spain. Every messenger's arrival draws attention. The empire still functions, but administrators feel pressure building steadily, like weight accumulating on an aging structure not designed to bear so much strain. Meanwhile, the Eastern Empire stands strong. You stand in Constantinople's bustling forum, where merchants from Asia, Africa, and the Mediterranean sell spices, silk, and metalwork. Walls rise high above the city, gleaming under bright sunlight. Libraries, courts, and workshops function with clarity and confidence. The contrast with the West is unmistakable. The East possesses wealth, population, and administrative stability. Though united in name, the two halves of the empire move along different paths. The East grows into a resilient state. The West navigates a slow, quiet struggle for survival. Back in Italy, new groups arrive seeking settlement. The Visigoths move through the peninsula. Burgundians and Ostrogoths negotiate land in exchange for service. You stand on a plain where Roman generals and Gothic leaders discuss terms. Horses snort softly in the cool air. Translators repeat phrases, ensuring understanding. Agreements are made, combining diplomacy with necessity. Many of these groups wish not to destroy Rome, but to join its world, adopting aspects of Roman law, religion, and culture. Yet their presence also marks the transformation of the West into a landscape of blended identities and overlapping loyalties. By mid-century, power in the West rests heavily on strong generals. You stand in a dim strategy tent near the Po River, where Flavius Aetius studies maps illuminated by oil lamps. His calm voice outlines defenses, alliances, and troop movements. Aetius skillfully balances relationships with various tribes, using diplomacy as much as force. Under his leadership, the empire holds together despite its challenges. But stability depends on individuals now, not institutions. Rome's future feels precarious, like a well-steered ship navigating shallow waters, safe for the moment, but vulnerable to any sudden change in tide. Aetius's leadership reaches its height when the Huns advance under Attila. You stand in a quiet clearing before the Battle of the Catalaunian Plains, where Roman and allied troops prepare their positions. The evening air is cool, carrying the scent of trampled grass. Soldiers adjust straps on shields, murmur brief prayers, or sit polishing spearheads in fading light. This alliance of Romans, Visigoths, and regional forces feels fragile yet determined. When battle comes, it is fierce, but Attila eventually withdraws. The West breathes a temporary sigh of relief, aware that survival now depends on delicate cooperation. Aetius returns to Italy as a celebrated defender of the West. You stand in Ravenna's palace as officials congratulate him, their faces bright with gratitude. Yet beneath the praise, tension simmers. His influence grows immense, too immense for some. Emperor Valentinian III, wary of being overshadowed, listens to advisors who whisper warnings about loyalty and ambition. Court politics take a quiet but dangerous turn. The atmosphere feels heavy, as if everyone senses a fracture forming but hopes it will pass. Rome's stability once again depends on fragile human relationships rather than enduring institutions. The fracture becomes fatal. In a moment of sudden fear and misjudgment, the emperor kills Aetius during a routine audience. You stand in the palace corridor moments afterward, where servants stand frozen, unable to comprehend what has occurred. The loss is immense. The empire has slain its most capable defender. Court officials exchange shocked glances. Some murmur prayers. Others stare silently at the floor. The repercussions ripple outward with quiet inevitability. Without Aetius's presence, Rome loses a central pillar of its defense and diplomacy. The West grows more vulnerable than ever. Chaos follows swiftly. Supporters of Aetius avenge his death months later by assassinating the emperor himself. You walk through Ravenna's streets as rumors spread. Citizens gather in clusters, whispering urgently. The palace gates remain shut, guarded by anxious soldiers. Leadership becomes uncertain. Factions compete for influence. Letters travel between generals, bishops, and provincial leaders seeking clarity. But the center cannot hold. Decisions slow. Commands conflict. Rome enters a period of quiet fragmentation. Not dramatic collapse, but gradual loosening, like threads slipping from an old tapestry. Sensing opportunity, the Vandals sail to Italy. You stand on a coastal cliff as their ships appear on the horizon. Dark silhouettes framed by pale morning light. In 455 CE, they reach Rome. The city, lacking its strongest defenders, negotiates. The Vandals move through its streets calmly but deliberately, taking goods, valuables, and captives. Some buildings suffer damage, others remain untouched. The sack lasts days, but the emotional weight lingers for generations. You walk through the forum afterward, where citizens gather broken pottery and scattered belongings. Rome still stands, yet something essential feels diminished. In the years that follow, the Western Empire becomes a landscape of competing generals and shifting loyalties. You stand beside a small garrison in Gaul, where Roman soldiers greet a Gothic commander now serving as an ally. Their exchange is polite but cautious. Roman officials issue decrees that influence little beyond nearby towns. Provinces begin to rely more on local powers than distant emperors. And yet, life persists. Farmers plow fields, markets operate, churches conduct rituals. The world does not collapse. It simply rearranges itself, as if Rome's long reach is gently withdrawing. The last emperors of the West hold fragile authority. You stand in a narrow hall in Ravenna, where Emperor Julius Nepos signs edicts with quiet determination, though his control is limited. Rival claimants rise and fall. Armies shift allegiance quickly, their loyalty tied to pay rather than patriotism. Outside the palace, citizens move through daily routines, fetching water, repairing roofs, tending gardens. Their world grows smaller, defined more by local needs than imperial ambition. The empire continues in name, but its substance has thinned, like sunlight fading behind a veil of cloud. Amid political unraveling, new kingdoms take root. In Gaul, the Franks consolidate power. In Spain, Visigothic rulers strengthen their territories. You walk through a hilltop settlement where Roman walls now surround a community with mixed customs. Latin inscriptions beside Germanic symbols. Roman laws adapted to new traditions. Children learn a blend of languages. Priests conduct services in basilicas built centuries earlier. Change feels natural, not abrupt. These successor kingdoms are not Rome, yet they are shaped by it, carrying fragments of law, architecture, and culture into emerging medieval worlds. By the late 5th century, power in Italy centers on Odoacer, a skilled military leader commanding diverse troops. You stand in a quiet audience chamber where envoys present petitions. Odoacer listens patiently, adjusting the clasp on his cloak. Though technically serving under a nominal emperor, he governs Italy with practical authority. The arrangement feels transitional, as if everyone senses the old order fading, but continues performing its rituals out of habit. Odoacer maintains stability, balancing Roman traditions with new realities. Yet the symbolic end of the Western Empire approaches, carried on soft footsteps rather than trumpet blasts. The final emperor of the West is Romulus Augustulus, a young boy placed on the throne by his father, a military officer. You watch him in a sunlit garden of the palace, studying scrolls with a tutor. He seems gentle, curious, unaware of the burden history will place upon his name. His reign is brief and largely ceremonial. Real authority lies elsewhere. When Odoacer eventually demands his abdication, the transition is quiet. No battle, no riot, only a peaceful handover. The young emperor is spared and sent to live comfortably in the countryside, fading into calm obscurity. You stand at the moment historians will later mark as the fall of the Western Roman Empire. 476 CE. In a modest hall in Ravenna, Romulus Augustulus hands over imperial insignia. Lamps flicker softly, casting warm light across polished floors. Odoacer accepts the symbols with measured dignity, sending them east to Constantinople. The act is simple, almost gentle. Outside, citizens move about their daily business, unaware that a defining chapter of history has quietly closed. There is no collapse, only a transition, like a long-held breath finally released. After 476, life across Italy continues in familiar rhythms. You walk through a busy marketplace in Ravenna, where fishermen unload nets, traders haggle over spices, and children chase each other between stalls. Odoacer rules as king, preserving Roman laws, weights, and customs. Local councils still meet. Churches remain active. The world feels changed, yet recognizable. The fall of Rome is not an explosion, but a shift, an old framework passing into new hands. The memories of the empire linger in buildings, language, and habits, shaping the landscape even as new identities emerge. In the provinces, life settles into new patterns. You stand in a small town in Gaul, where Roman milestones still mark the road, though moss climbs their sides. Local rulers administer justice in halls once used by imperial governors. Farmers tend vineyards planted generations earlier. Women draw water from fountains adorned with faded carvings of Roman gods. Children play beside crumbling walls, unaware of their ancient origins. The empire may have ended politically, but its cultural threads remain woven through daily life. Roman customs blend with local traditions, forming the early fabric of medieval Europe. The Eastern Empire, soon known as Byzantium, continues Rome's legacy. You stand atop Constantinople's walls, watching distant sails approach the harbor. Merchants unload goods from across the known world. Spices from Arabia, silk from China, grain from Egypt. Scholars study manuscripts in well-lit libraries. Courts deliberate cases under detailed mosaics of emperors and saints. The East preserves Roman law, architecture, and administration with renewed vigor. Though separate from the West, it carries the torch of Roman civilization forward, shaping centuries of culture, faith, and political thought. In Italy, Theodoric the Great rises to power after Odoacer's fall. You watch him ride through Ravenna's streets, his soldiers walking in disciplined ranks behind him. Theodoric rules as an Ostrogothic king, yet respects Roman traditions. He repairs aqueducts, restores public buildings, and supports schools. Senators continue to advise him. Churches remain active centers of community life. Under his leadership, Italy experiences a period of calm. The world has changed, but Rome's influence endures beneath new rulers who adopt its customs even as they reshape its future. You stand once more on a quiet hill overlooking the old capital. Rome's skyline glows softly in late afternoon light. Domes, arches, scattered columns rising above tiled rooftops. The empire that once commanded continents has transformed into something smaller, gentler, more fragmented. Yet its spirit lingers in law, language, architecture, and memory. The fall of Rome was not a single moment, but a long transition, generations of adaptation, loss, and renewal. History moves like the Tiber below, sometimes swift, sometimes slow, always carrying traces of the past into the future. Let your thoughts drift calmly through everything you've witnessed. The weary legions on distant frontiers, candlelit negotiations with new peoples, the quiet shock of Rome's sacks, and the gentle transitions that followed. Picture the Forum at dusk, its stones still warm, its arches softened by time. Listen to distant footsteps echoing through basilicas where prayers continue despite political change. Rome's fall becomes not an ending, but a reshaping, a reminder that civilizations evolve, adapt, and flow onward like rivers finding new paths. As these scenes fade, allow the weight of centuries to settle into peaceful stillness. Now return to your own quiet room. The air is steady, familiar. Any echoes of ancient cities soften into gentle background memory. Outside, the night lies calm, its silence deeper than old marble halls or fading imperial courts. You are safe, warm, and grounded in the present. Let the long arc of Rome's story drift away like evening light slipping behind a distant hill. Rest comes easily now, as history settles into quiet reflection. Close your eyes, breathe gently. The world of the past grows still, and the night opens wide before you.